All right, I think we are live.
We're live. Hooray.
Incredible. Back
Best
again.
time of every week is here.
Mm-hmm.
Streaming time.
This is we already streamed once yesterday and we're streaming again. Incredible.
Yeah, what's
Um
going on? Why
We're
are we
all,
here? Why are we doing this?
we're always streaming.
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. Well, how's the hobby, how's life in general been treating the two of you, Greg, Eric?
Uh,
Um, it's fine.
I was gonna say I haven't been hobbying.
Yeah, I haven't done much either. I guess I've done a small amount of them, attempting to continue to paint at this one Wraith model to try to see if I can come up with something that I like and could apply to the other Wraith models in
I hear that.
my warband. And I don't know, it's going okay.
Yeah.
It's
I've been
going
working
okay.
on painting the bases for, or at least some of the bases for my sister's Sigmar warband, and it's going okay. I think I'm getting back in the swing of things again. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, I
and so it's going
actually,
okay.
I actually attempted to dry brush with like kind of like a stippling dry brush technique
Hmm.
on one of this wraith, and maybe this has worked okay. I feel I have to go back at it and add some more colors to make it more varied looking.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason why I went to do it, like I tried to do some blending and stuff on the cloth to make it look okay, and I don't know. I feel I'm not very talented with it, having painted so few models and not really used any scale 75 paints in the past. And I don't know, I could really see the brush strokes and such that I was doing, in which in some sense that maybe was fine in the sense that it could provide texture to like a
Hmm.
cloth like material. But I realized, you know what, like I might as well just try that method of dry brushing, which really isn't the sort of dry brushing I'm accustomed to.
Can you send me a picture of that again, Eric? Is that easy for you to do? Oh, I can put it up on screen.
I'll see if I can maybe even take a slightly better one.
Yeah, I've been working, as I said earlier, I've been working on painting like the bases and kind of just going at it with like I've started painting some of like the wood elements and like the stone on the bases, and here looking at everything and really in these really magnified images makes it kind of look different. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I still have a lot that I have to do on all of the bases, but I think they're getting there.
Yeah, and I guess I just have to. Um, I just want to get something that I'm somewhat satisfied and painted. Like I've painted so few models that they're not gonna be perfect, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
No, yeah, I
That's fine.
understand that too.
Just doing anything I think will be good, and that's part of the whole creative process, learning and
Hmm.
getting better. And I shouldn't expect to be
Doing
really good
hey
at
Ryan,
anything.
nice to have you.
I shouldn't expect to be particularly good at anything. Certainly painting when I have ultimately so little experience at it.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
know. Like it takes a lot of time, a lot of experience, and even just to learn how to work with some of the different mediums. And I feel even for me, having painted a fair amount, not necessarily that regularly. I feel every time it's often a few months before I get back and start painting again. I sort of have to not necessarily relearn, but kind of get in the spirit of things and reacquaint myself with how certain of the paints like handle and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
I guess now I got a whole bunch of new paint sets that I'm experimenting around with too. So you never quite know how they're gonna work. Most of what I've used currently, however, are like Model Air Vallejo paints, and I feel that makes up the majority of the paints that I use. I use
That was certainly the most I've used too.
Yeah. I've started to use more and more of the scale 75 paints, and some of that was just due to the fact that they have some pretty nice paint sets based around different colors and metallics and stuff like that. And I bought them, and now that's what I use. Essentially, that's just it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would make any claims like they've revolutionized like how I paint metallics or anything like that, but or like any of the colors really. But I find for a lot of things, if you just buy like a small paint set of like a range of colors like blues or greens, that often works, at least for me, works pretty well. Because I feel every time in the past, if I went to like Games Workshop or some other hobby store and like I'm gonna buy some paints, like I want some blues, you'd go and you'd sort of not really have a good sense of what blues you really wanted or the shades or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then you'd end up buying like two, and you'd bring them home, experiment around with a little, and then sort of realize, you know what, none of these are really the color I wanted. Like I still,
Yeah.
or oh, I already had that blue. Well, that sucks. Okay. And then I always still felt like I was no further than I was before.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. And that's kind of why I went for the same sort of reason why I was interested in looking at these scale 75 paints, was just because like they have a set that has a lot of different blues that kind of can work with one another, and that in itself is helpful.
Yeah, no, Eric, I think what you have there for the blue actually looks pretty nice. I mean, you could then also consider going in and, like, for some of the creases in the cloth and stuff like that, you could have some other, like, subtle edge highlights and
Yeah,
stuff.
like doing a real edge highlight.
Yeah, I mean, it can. You do run the risk, like, it could come off as looking, like, really forced and, like, kind of out of left field. And so that's the thing you kind of have to worry about. And sometimes, if you just persist with it throughout the whole model, it'll look fine in the end, even if it might look a little weird initially.
Yeah, I feel I'm gonna try some lighter colors and maybe even do some darker one, like make it darker in certain areas to sort of bring out the
Yes.
contrast and such, and then just kind of see what it looks like and potentially do some really fine edge highlighting and stuff. But I'm
Yeah, I mean, I
somewhat
think that
hesitant
looks
at that
nice.
because I am not good at doing any of that.
I find, like, oftentimes, like, once I've started, like, painting something and done some of the initial highlights, it does really help to go back with, like, a darker color and sort of redefine some of the shadows and recessed areas, and that often, like, makes things look a bunch nicer.
Hmm.
Eric, that dark blue kind of looks clothy, like a heavy woolen
Mm-hmm.
blue wool.
That's basically what I was trying to do.
Okay, well, it looks like that.
And whether or not I intended to go into this making it like actually a material, I wasn't sure. But based
That's what
on
it looks
how,
like, man.
what was that?
That's what it looks like, man.
Well, that's what yes. I mean, when I found that I painted
Couldn't get
so
rid of the
poorly,
textures and all the brush
yeah, I
strokes.
realized I inadvertently added texture to it, and I was like, you know what, like I should just go with that, and that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean, I found oftentimes if you're painting stuff, and if you're not happy with how like a texture or something turns out, depending on what it is, you can often just sort of run with that and use that texture as a way to inform where you highlight next and how you proceed with the model.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of what I see if I can. If we look at like these stone bases here, like they sort of have a whole range of different colors and shades and hues, and I sort of just will like randomly apply that with different colors and then go back and forth with lighter and darker colors and just kind of build on some of those to kind of get like an uneven, and I wouldn't necessarily say natural look, but I think it looks okay.
Mm-hmm.
Looks better than okay.
Thanks. But yeah, so that's kind of where it stands with that. I guess in terms of painting as well, like I think we've shown this on Instagram as well. I finished up the last model for the Sisters of Sigmar. This is kind of like a plague doctor inspired sister. In this case, she was also heavily inspired off of the warband that Alex from Echoes of Imperium, he designed a warband kind of like this as well. And those sisters were sort of some of the members of like an inner guard or choir that sort of
Guard something.
yeah, like there's some talk I think that there's like some demon of sorts. Is that within their cathedral? Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're sort of charged with keeping it contained. So maybe that's what this sister here is doing. She has a dagger behind her back, and then she's holding a little holy symbol. In this case, it's of a little flaming hammer. So I'm pretty happy with how she turned out. It was a pretty quick conversion compared to some of the other ones that I've done. And I think she'll provide a pretty good contrast to some of the other members of the warband. Like most of them, I think, are gonna be in a lot of have a lot of like whites and reds in their whole wardrobe, whereas this one I think is gonna be more like black leather and maybe like a white mask. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I'm happy with the initial conversion.
Yeah, I feel it'll be kind of neat. And it's also, she already looks somewhat intimidating and creepy. And I think the fact that she's so tall and pretty tall in relationship to some of the other models in the warband also kind of adds to this ominous, imposing feeling from her. So I think that's neat.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. And yeah, I think there are, in the Sister Sigmar warband that I've made, there are kind of a range of different heights and sizes of the characters, which I think sort of makes it a little more visually interesting. I don't think any of them are so large that they look out of place, but it is what it is. Yeah, so I think that we've largely covered what we've been working on with the hobby and everything. So, in terms of what Games Workshop has been talking about recently, I don't know if there's a ton of stuff that I'm super excited about, at least very recently.
They had the new thing talking about their concept of battle ready for their contrast paints.
Oh, really?
It's like really short, and it doesn't really provide any real information that wasn't largely provided at the coverage from Warhammer Fest. But they kind of go into that idea that it's better to play games with painted models, and you can just paint some basic colors to get them on the tabletop. And before the classic method that GW always spouts is doing the base colors, putting like a wash over basically everything, and then saying it's done, and how these contrast paints can do that too. Potentially better. I don't know. But I feel we really just need to see what the
That's
product
pretty
is.
weird. I don't like if you
Well, 'cause,
compare the two methods, it's like they're not any different. It's
There's
like
like one less step.
yeah,
But
sort of. But was the shade step really that like time consuming?
well, the
And like I
shade
feel
step
you'd
did
have
almost
more.
always look bad.
Yeah, but I mean,
Not that these necessarily look that much better, but they don't really emphasize here that they have this a new proprietary primer that you have to use.
yeah, there are two of them, I think.
And then it makes you want to like. It almost seems like it's probably going to be some sort of primer that has a somewhat satin finish to it, or that would be my guess. Probably not. I mean, a gloss or satin finish, such that it allows these new paints, which perhaps are some sort of enamel based thing or whatever. I don't know. Ultimately, I'm not sure, but that will allow it to fit kind of into the recesses and whatnot, and not just stain like areas, kind of like the acrylic washes have a tendency to do. Um, so I guess ultimately, maybe what I'm trying to say is I kind of doubt these are anything too revolutionary, and it's just some permutation of products that are already on the market. Admittedly, some of which may not perhaps be as widespread in this sort of like miniature figure field, but
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll be good for someone who just started. But if to me, it almost seems like it's more complicated than like the traditional method. Like, oh, they have to make sure they use that special primer, and then they have to make. Whereas like
yeah.
the classic method, it's like paint the models the base colors you want, add the shades, you're done. Like so
And
it.
it's also interesting because I feel in this classic method, like if you get a paint where you don't want it, it's pretty easy to go back and touch it up, add more wash, don't, whatever it is you
Yeah.
want to do. Whereas from I gather for these contrast paints, they aren't really like that, or that it's very hard to like. You would have to kind of like add more primer almost to the area and do it again, which kind of brings up a point that like sure maybe this contrast primaris marine it looks okay, but I feel while without too much technical skill maybe you can get an all right effect. I'm kind of imagining you probably can't fine tune those results that much. Like if you're like that's not exactly how you want it, like you would rather have this one thing have more of a highlight, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Like, I don't think you will probably be able to easily go back in there and modify it.
Well,
Whereas the traditional way, perhaps you can.
isn't this for people who don't want to paint?
And
I
yes, I
think
think,
so. Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
think it's for people who are looking to
Make
step
a
up
really
their
nice.
painting game.
No.
This is for people who like, oh, I have an ultramarine force that I want to get out on the table and play in this grand tournament that needs to be painted. I'll use these, paint the eyes, paint the gun black. It looks all right. I don't think it's for people that like, oh, I'm gonna cut out a couple steps but still get the perfect looking model.
yeah. I mean, I guess ultimately it'll be interesting, like to see. I mean, one would still imagine that you can, from like that battle ready picture from the contrasting, one would imagine that you could then go in and do some edge highlighting and do kind of traditional painting things.
But I
Yeah.
feel like that's
If you're gonna go and do that, you probably just don't want to use the
Yeah,
contrast
so
paints.
that's the thing. Like if you really do want to go back and add that extra sort of touch to it, it probably somewhat suggests that you are somewhat particular and you have particular effects you want to achieve. And if that's the case, yeah, it might just be better to just do that.
I mean, because the battle ready dude on the bottom, like, you could tell they painted the silver on his weapon, like whatever silver they used, and then they applied a shade to it.
You
So,
sure,
like, they're
Adam? Maybe
already
that's the
using.
contrast paint.
I don't think so, because I think most of the contrast paints are like the brighter color. So I don't know. Like it.
Well, I guess I'm still kind of excited to see
I
what
hope they have lots of YouTube. Like they already have on their YouTube channel lots of videos of how to
it
paint
says
stuff.
they are. It says they will. They're gonna have Duncan Rhodes and Peach, whatever that guy, whoever that is.
Yeah,
Well, they have a picture on that of a community thing of a Stormcast next to the Space Marine. Have you had that up?
a little. Looks
Like,
pretty
because
good.
the
The
Stormcast
Stormcast looks
looks,
better.
yeah, like he looks kind of good. But in some sense, I guess that brings up a thing like medals and such already. Like, I feel you can make them look all right with a pretty simple, like a base coat, a simple acrylic wash, and some minor highlighting and whatnot. So I feel in this sense, like the metal looks, kind of good on this Stormcast, but you could have probably fairly easily achieved that same thing with just their basic
Well, I
method.
don't. Yeah. I mean, just them showing these pictures is wildly uninformative. So,
Hmm.
um,
I guess I'm ultimately interested to see if some like better painters and just real painters, like if they will find a use for these that can like supplement something they're already doing and not just be like, hey, like, but as you mentioned, Greg, like it seems the basic idea of this is for like someone like a beginning painter that just or something that just quickly wants to get them to look passable and be done. And I'm sure it'll work fine with that. But
the
it'll
only
be
way to
interesting.
know is for us to buy them and use them.
yeah,
But yeah, I think
we're
it'll
not
be
gonna do
interesting
that.
to see if they
Yeah.
can achieve, if people can use them to achieve stuff that's
But
more
what a good
varied than that.
blog post it could be, or a good stream.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, we should probably do something of that nature.
But I'm not. I don't care. I'm not interested in it.
Well, I should do that, or you should do it, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, we could try. Well, if there's interest in it, we could have like a blog post or like have a stream where.
One
Is
problem,
there interest in it?
one problem with that though is that means we would have to buy these pins.
Well, I mean, if there's interest, we could do it.
I've never had problems throwing money at things
Yeah.
and
We'll have
then
to find the
giving
perfect
the things that
models.
I buy to you.
You know what would be
You
the
guys.
perfect thing to do? We could get some more of the blind box miniatures.
And paint them.
Yeah, and paint them with
Paint them up.
paint them up with one thick coat, and experiment and see what we could do. I don't know.
It could all be done on the stream. We could open them, prime them, put on the thick coat.
Leave the mold lines on.
Well, yeah.
Don't want that. Do not want. All right, we've talked about the contrast paints enough. I feel we've already kind of we've talked about them in several streams, and we still don't really know a whole lot more than we did when they were first announced.
One thing, this is pretty unrelated, but Games Work, the Warhammer community page, has been doing various types of sort of weekly webcomics, and I haven't had a huge amount of interest in many of them, but their Chaos Undecided ones are actually kind of funny. Or I find they're a lot better than some of the other ones, or at least to me. And part of it may just be because like the art style is kind of cute and humorous.
I found the latest one. Let's read it. It's all sorted out then. I'm glad your Legion is so logical. Of course, we welcome any who wish to destroy the rotten Imperium. I should probably just mention, however, our old chapter was a successor of the Imperial Fists. I hope this won't be an issue. And then they're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. The Iron Warriors do hate the Imperial Fists. But in like the one, I think he's the one that's the one who says he's from the successor chapter, like with the horns on his helmet. I feel he's in most, if not all, of the comics, and he always looks kind of hapless and pathetic. And
let's look at one of the other ones.
like even maybe just bringing up the first one is kind of funny.
It's funny with the Night Lord showing up and scaring them. They're cute. Chaos Space Marines. They can never be scary or frightening, but they can be cute.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, if you read the first one,
the first one is funny. Yeah, I think I've read this. Now that we've broken from the chapter, we must rename our company as a warband. It's the only way we'll gain any glory or respect for ourselves. What about the Children of Torment? It'll terrify those corpse worshippers. That name has already been taken. What about Brotherhood of Darkness? Straightforward, but descriptive. That's taken too. The Bloody Dawn? Taken. The Apocalypse Company? Taken. The Heralds of Despair? Taken. Maybe we should just join one of the legions. Agreed.
I guess then all of these have been, or most of them have been, like trying to join the different legions, and how it doesn't necessarily
work out.
Yeah.
And that's why the Black Legion is the most successful Chaos Legion, really. Successful? What's all those repeated Black Crusades, then? Oh, then they're running for their lives. Yeah.
Each crusade was a victory.
The fourth one's kind of funny, too.
Each crusade was retconned into a victory.
Yeah, the fourth one's kind of funny.
Yeah, okay, it is funny.
Giving the thumbs up. And,
I'll have to start reading them. They're pretty good. All is dust. Cool. Oh, yeah, they're pretty good. I like them. That sort of makes me want to do a short web comic maybe every month or two, write like a little 3-4 panel thing making fun of something. There's plenty to make fun of.
Well, I was gonna say we might have a hard time coming up with something to make fun of.
Yeah. All right. I was gonna talk a little bit about so I guess they're finally. I don't know if we talked about this on any of the podcasts or any of the streams yet, but for Necromunda, they're soon gonna be releasing a plastic version of Cal Jericho and Scabs.
I'm pretty sure we at least talked briefly about our general disappointment of the models, but there are now more pictures of different aspects of the models, so.
I mean, I think there are some aspects of the models that are really nice. It's just,
Yeah, they're not terrible, but
Cal Jericho's good. It's just he's a little bit caricatured and like kind of everything's a little like legs a little short, body a little short.
head a little big.
like he just looks wildly caricatured, like more so than even Games Workshop tends to do. Like he literally looks like he has major anatomical issues.
Well, he does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course he does.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I like how they like redesigned his las pistols, and in some regards, there are aspects of them that are actually pretty good. They still won't fit in the holsters he has on his side, which so you'd really wonder like
Getting
what.
close though.
It's sort of close. Like why didn't they just make them a little smaller so they'd fit in those big holsters? I don't know. And then they have Scabs. I feel if of any of the models, I feel that people will use this to convert stuff. I like how he's running with the pistol. The pistol itself looks pretty bad. Like the barrel of the pistol is bent upwards. Like it's the weirdest like revolver like I've ever seen.
Yeah, somebody doesn't quite know how a revolver works.
Yeah,
the plasma weapon on his back is gigantic too.
They show like a picture of the sprue, like it's a single sprue with all the components.
Oh, do they somewhere?
Yeah, and the stuff looks pretty good. Like I feel.
Yeah, hell, that's a good set.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty good. Like I think these models will be used in a lot of places for conversion.
When it comes out, I'll buy it for you.
Okay. Where was this picture of the sprue? What?
Community,
on
man.
A community page, one of their.
Oh, because I mean, I was looking
guide to Cal, Jericho, and Scabs.
Okay.
It's called.
And there's a book that's just all about Cal.
I don't know.
Where there was a picture.
No, it's a full guide to fighting in the bad zones, running a Venerator bounty hunter gang, and rules for forming alliances with it. Oh, that's cool. So making like bounty hunters and stuff. They also have another post on the community page where they show more pictures of the painted Cal Jericho, and you can get like his like little saber. I think looks pretty good. It's
okay. Yeah, so this release is substantially improved by the fact that the models are in plastic.
Oh yeah,
because I just assumed it was some resin thing, but so that means you could probably take how you could just replace his face and do some modifications, maybe make him not look so awkward. And like the plasma rifle on Scab's back is detached, so you could put another weapon on his back that's not so dumb looking. So like so
at least it has a stock.
That's true. So ultimately, it went from I'm a lot more satisfied with this than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good release.
And yeah, I think more people will use it than if it was like just some another resin thing
that you had to buy
from Forge World. So yeah, it's a major step up from any of the previous versions of this model.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the little stub gun, it looks pretty bad, but it's actually pretty small. Like I think you could actually trim this down a bunch and make it into a pretty nice looking like automatic pistol or something.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. So
and the poses of both of them I think are actually pretty good.
Incredible.
Yeah, no, it's a good release. It's a good
incredible.
release. Yeah. And the other rule book might be cool too. Like, it'd be interesting to see how, like, if they have a bunch of the other like bounty hunter guilds and stuff. Like, they made a lot of models,
Yeah.
earlier old metal models that I think people like Jess Goodwin and stuff made.
Yeah, no, I think it's neat that they
Spire
continue
hunters and
to
stuff.
release stuff. Admittedly, it's gotten to the point that like it would be nice if you could get all the rules in one place,
Well, in about like a year or two, they'll release a volume that has it all.
or at least
Probably.
partially. Like they did release a book that had like all the main uh, war bands, their rules in one place, which is nice. But it would be nice if they released something that had like all the basic rules in those war bands.
Yeah.
Because like I was going to buy one of those, but then it's just like when I had to choose between the core rulebook, which had like two gangs in it, or like all the gang rules, it just seemed like I don't want to spend $40 for that.
Yeah, why bother?
So I didn't.
Why bother?
No, no reason to go singing a song from Pinkerton, Adam.
They put out a set that had them all, but it won't
All
have
what?
this new book. Did they put out a digital version of it?
Or so I looked. I was specifically looking at the digital versions, and from what I could
Okay.
find was this digital book had just all the war bands, but not the rules for the game, and a book that had the rules for the game, and including only the Escher and the
Well, just buy both
Goliaths.
of them, Eric.
So I don't want to spend like $80 or something to have that.
Yeah, it's not
So
great.
I decided to instead get nothing.
Yeah, just make up your own rules. It's fine. It'll be more rewarding in the end, probably.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
I'd
true.
say.
Well, so in that sense, I probably would have felt better if the Necromunda rulebook had none of the war bands in it,
Yeah, no, I agree.
and it was literally just the rules and perhaps the basic weapon profiles and things of that nature. Possibly a generic gang, or like
Yeah,
kind of
that's what
like
I was gonna say. It would probably be even better if it was like they had rules for a very generic gang that allowed you to make up your own gang.
yeah. So I feel that would have appealed to me more rather than being like the fact that just having two of the gangs just like immediately makes it seem like it was like half baked and not like not.
Nah, it wasn't half baked. They just wanted to get more money out of you, Eric.
I
That's
mean,
all it
yeah,
was.
it's true. But yeah, so long story short, that was a thing I didn't buy.
That's cool. Good story.
Yeah, good story.
Good story.
But I guess if they do, I mean, because I could see them eventually releasing another updated version in time, and maybe I would get that.
I'm sure they will eventually. Like, every so often they release, like, a new Lord of the Rings compiled book, and, like, you always buy them, so.
Yeah, always.
Yep, so.
I mean, and that's something like with at least Kill Team, they've been releasing a lot of additional rule books for that, like elites, commanders, those things. But at least the base Kill Team rules, like, still seems like it kind of has everything there. They're the basic rules, various sort of settings and types of ways to play it, and all like the basic armies there,
Yeah, they have
and
all the
everything
basic
else.
war bands that are so limited in scope that you can't even make what you want. I like
Nah,
that.
it's true.
It's
Which,
like,
yeah.
you try and make a cool Imperial Guard kill team, and you design a whole bunch of models. Like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could make like a veteran with a shotgun. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Nope.
Can't do it. Oh, it'd be really cool if I could make like a.
Well, they released the Elites thing at him. That surely has.
It probably just
some
says like Ogrins or some bullshit.
I'm pretty sure that is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is what it is. It has like Ogrins or like the Imperial Guard have like the least interesting things in there.
Yeah, so I don't know. I was disappointed.
Although I guess, admittedly, I think it does for the Imperial Guard add like sort of, I'm just going to call them, or the regimental doctrines or sort of chapter tactics. So that's maybe sort of neat.
Yeah, I just was surprised. Like, I started piecing together a warband of like cool guard models that I had been working on, and then you made a warband. Like, yeah, it's gonna be cool. And then you looked at the rules. Oh, can't get that. Can't get that. Can't get that. Can't get any of this. That's neat.
You had actually suggested, since I was trying to paint some of this blue, to look at some of the Arbites you painted. I'm pretty sure you have those models.
Oh shit! I bet I do. Yeah, they're not in the other case. Shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eric.
It's fine. I was pretty upset about it, but I'll get over it. I'll get over it.
Could probably look.
Hey man, we've almost talked for an hour. Let's talk about Andrew Rae's Kickstarter. The gentleman from Statuesque Miniatures. He has a Kickstarter.
Yeah, and some of you may be familiar with them. They release a whole series of different scaled heads that you can use to supplement other Games Workshop and other kits. He makes a lot of really good ranges of like female heads. We've used a few in some of our models. Like even one of the Arbites that we were mentioning has one of the set heads. But yeah, he recently, I guess just today or yesterday, started a Kickstarter called Left at the Bottom of the Garden, which he sculpted like a characterful bunch of little forgotten toys and dolls.
That are animated.
Yeah, they're animated. My favorite.
The Hoodie Crow?
The Hoodie Crows, they're my favorite.
Yeah, they're great. The Penguin's pretty great too, though.
I like the Penguin too.
I mean, they're all pretty great. But the Crows.
Yeah, even the Cat's pretty good, and I don't like cats at all.
Yeah, no, I think they're all pretty nice. And it's been kind of fun because I think Andrew's been working on them for the last few months. And it's been neat to see him kind of experiment with digital sculpting to kind of create them and doing various aspects of the models, and then seeing him, go from the concepts to the actual final models and then getting the molds and such. So like it's been fun to watch, and it's neat to see that he put it up on like his first Kickstarter, and it seems to be doing pretty well with it. Within a few hours.
80 backers, it's like more than double what it was asking for.
Oh, I backed it.
I did too.
Eric?
I haven't yet.
Eric.
I guess I should.
You should back it for just the regular models, then you should paint them and send them to him, Eric.
I don't think Andrew wants my.
Yeah, he does.
I like them. Like I
think they're great.
Yeah, I'll have to paint some of them. Probably the hoodie crows.
The Hoodie Crows. I love.
Does it say when he anticipates them to be shipped and whatnot?
I mean, quickly. Like, he doesn't have any stretch goals and shit because he wants to, like, finish this. And I think he already has the molds and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's
ready. Basically ready, I think. So for an add-on, you can get more Hoodie Crows.
Yeah, I might do that.
Yeah. Oh, yes, the Hoodie Crow.
It's kind
Yes,
of sad that somebody would have abandoned these little toys,
I agree.
but now it's just finding other homes for all of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it hints at that, like, these little toys are going to go on an adventure into, like, a deep, dark wood. So hopefully he continues to make other models to explore that.
Yeah, well,
Left
I
at the
backed it
bottom
now
is a
too.
project to fund the production of 9 high-quality, lead-free metal miniatures, each depicting a lost toy. Help me begin to tell their story in miniature form as the toys set off on a journey through the dark and twisted woods.
Yeah, it sounds like something that I'd want to be part of.
Olive knew they would soon have to leave since the hoodie crows had appeared and and there was a change in the air, their cawing giving voice to a restlessness the toys had not known before.
Yeah, nah, really nice. It's just cool to see him, kind of take this project from the beginning to the end and used Kickstarter to kind of help the process. And I mean, it's been nice. Like he already obviously did all the work and had all the molds and things of that nature made. So in that sense, it's just like so. It was clearly already very invested in the product,
Mm-hmm.
which is neat. And I guess I kind of feel that if we ever do try to make some mold like weapons or something molds and stuff, I feel this is sort of the route that I'd want to go if we ever would use Kickstarter for anything.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do stretch goals or anything like that.
I don't think I'd want to use Kickstarter, but if we did, I would much rather it be
Mm-hmm.
everything basically done.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, it's great. So if you're at all interested in these little models,
I mean, they're
certainly
not
look
even
to.
very expensive. Like one of the backing options, which admittedly there were only a few of, where Andrew would trim the models for you and then like basically prepare them like they are in the images at the start of the
Mm-hmm.
like product page thing there. Put like cut off the mold lines and flashing, like maybe sand them a little bit and put on it's like a lacquer or something.
They're
And that was
already
only like $45 or something.
they're already gone.
Yeah, I mean I back at that level.
They were only 10, and I can understand because he
I don't
wouldn't
want to
want
have to
to do
trim
much
my
of that.
models.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so if you're at all interested in these, like, certainly look into it and maybe back it. Certainly, at least for the hoodie crows.
Yeah, who wouldn't want the hoodie crows and that penguin? Like who doesn't like penguins?
Yeah, I agree. And this interesting little necklace.
With a scapula of ears.
Could modify them into ears, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little creepier.
Yeah.
A lot creepier. Could give the little hoodie crows little executioner axes.
Mm.
Yeah. But so, yeah, it's a great project. I hope he continues to do more with it. I guess we could also, in some of our other streams, we've sort of talked about some like different things going on in Instagram and other hobbyists who are doing things that we think are cool and inspiring. So we could like kind of move into that as well, I think. The cat is great, Eli. Black Templar rules terrible. Who knew? I don't think they were ever good. And they were
Space
always
Marines are kind of not good either, though. So
I was always sort of yeah, I don't know. It surprised me initially when like years ago they had like a Black Templar Codex. Like it almost questioned like why. Like, they're not that different. Like, they just don't have librarians and stuff. And they sort of forced a bunch of rules into them and gave them some characters and stuff. So yeah, I feel if I was making a set army, I would just make a Space Marine army.
Yeah.
And just don't use librarians and other psychers.
I mean, I kind of think, though, that Games Workshop's more recent strategy of just making the basic army list and having the chapter tactic sort of thing that have a few sets of rules to modify them, I kind of think that's a good strategy. And I mean, admittedly, it doesn't really do much of significance for the Black Templar, but I feel that's probably a better strategy than like making like Blood Angel Codex, Dark Angel Codex, Space Wolf Codex, like all these.
Yeah. It's a lot of books.
I mean, I guess they've been a thing for so many years that they have some somewhat substantial differences from sort of the Codex Astartes. So, I mean, I guess it's not terrible.
And I mean,
but
lots of people like them, and they had armies and stuff, so I can understand that they might be pissed if it's all kind of gone.
If they would do more like that, though, like more Codex books for different chapters, I feel it would be better if they kind of approached it from how like they used to do that in second edition. There was the Angels of Death Codex that had both the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels. I feel if they approach it something like that and like let's make a codex for like all like a bunch of the major successor chapters from the Imperial Fist, for example.
Yeah, they could do something like
Or
that.
Something like that, and such that they would have like maybe 2 lists or something. Like,
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
that would I feel be better. But having said this, like I would rather see Games Workshop spend time pursuing other things than making different additional Space Marine codexes. So,
all right, I guess moving on. So, a great like hobbyist who we've been following for a while now on Instagram, goes by the handle of Ingrimson, and appears their name might be Simon. They do like a huge range of really, really interesting and imaginative conversions where they really combine kits from all across the board and make some really neat like Space Marine type characters, like undead knights, and a whole range of things.
a lot of this stuff reminds me a little bit of From Software's kind of designs. So, like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, that sort of stuff. And in some sense, a little bit of Kingdom Death designs, but like neat in this case.
Just the creepy aspects.
Yeah, the only interesting portions of Kingdom Death.
Correct.
And
like all the stuff is tall, and the arms and legs are thin, and that all just adds to an overall like unsettling vibe to all of the stuff.
Yeah, I feel a lot of the models, it's almost hard to even describe them, and in the same sense, like kind of tell where all the parts are from, because they're just the creations are very different, and a lot of them don't just immediately fall into like, oh, this is obviously a Stormcast Eternal, or this is obviously such and such. And I think that's neat. I like that element of it, and it adds a lot more kind of personal flavor to some of the stuff for even like the Space Marines and such he creates.
Yeah, I mean, he has some really cool like Legion of the Damned.
Yeah, I feel like they're like the best Legion of the Damned models I've seen.
Yeah, no, they're really good. Based off the Primaris Marines, and then just splicing in a lot of the cool skulls and other stuff, and the like wraith flames work really well.
His most recent post for the Legion of the Damned thing I think is cool, and he uses a lot of these the new Night Haunt swords, like I think from the just I don't know what they're called, but like the ones that I'm making these ghosts out of. Like I feel some of those swords are pretty neat because they're somewhat thin and long.
Yeah, now they're neat swords. Like I feel
I mean, they don't fit that well for a lot of other GW models because they're so long and whatnot.
and
But
big.
for the kind of things that he has been creating, since they're so tall, spindly, and interesting looking, I think it fits a lot better.
Yeah, I agree.
He has a kind of a cool brother Goswin, and it's just kind of a neat little knight with a shield, and it's kind of a nail in the shield holding up some parchment, and he has sort of a morning star that isn't
He's
gigantic.
really cool.
That
Cool.
also kind of reminds, as I mentioned before, like Dark Souls, some of the knight designs. Like I like him.
He has a really neat painting style as well. Like how he's painting like the Legion of the Damned look really nice. Yeah, so certainly give Ingramson a follow if you're not already following him, and I feel it's very much kind of, for me, sort of like an inspiration for like looking to more uncommon places and combining things. Sort of like there are a lot of hobbyists out there doing similar things to that, but like you can really really make some interesting and cool
Well,
models.
I feel like all of his stuff looks unique when it comes. Like I don't feel like I've seen any like Space Marine models or any models quite like his.
Well, here he's looks like, I'm not sure if he's sold this or not, but he has a little Space Marine here. On top of their little halo, they have this little axe head from one of the Empire Great Swords. That's cool.
Yeah, I feel his work is fairly distinctive. You can kind of pick it out, and that in itself is neat. And yeah, it just is kind of taking Games Workshop models and going with them in directions that maybe aren't seen that often. And I think that's kind of exciting. And I'm in general always just interested to see the kind of stuff that he creates and how he uses kind of maybe somewhat non-traditional painting styles and textures to sort of emphasize the divergence of his creations from kind of standard GW models.
Yeah, I agree.
There's the model that he made. It's kind of like it's holding a sword straight up, and it's kind of like three skulls, like his, right beside one another. He went past it.
One of the heads is made out of one of the blight drone or one of the spindle drones.
It's past the tall gold avatar model. Like once you get to the gold Eldar avatar model, it goes down a little bit.
Oh, the like. Oh boy, yeah, really creepy stuff.
Like has that skull with the mouth screaming.
Well, then part of that thing was made from a spindle drone.
Where it says getting Gravelord Nito vibes. Nito, that was one of the characters in Dark Souls.
Dark Souls, yeah.
Well, yeah, because that
That's
was
cool.
certainly something that came to mind here. But I like how the painting that he's been doing there is they're fairly limited. It has a limited palette, but that combined with all the interesting textures and stuff really combines and makes this really otherworldly entity and creates sort of a cosmic terror Lovecraftian vibe to it that I think's great.
Yeah.
And he often has a lot of kind of circular imagery. He'll have,
Yeah.
I think is cool too. And it makes, you can kind of sometimes recognize some of his work because of that. And I think that's sort of a neat theme that he adds to a lot of his things that sort of connect them together in sort of his own personal mythology almost. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I feel his stuff is some of like one of the favorite hobbies I feel I've discovered this year, or maybe at the end of last year. I'm not 100% sure, but
He has a Patreon.
does he?
Interesting.
Oh, actually, no. I guess I did know that, and I think it's linked. He actually has it sort of linked up in his profile. Who it seems is only one backer.
Man, yeah, his stuff's really cool.
I guess Patreon's one of those odd things that I could see how people want making it and kind of feel, in some sense, feeling bad that you have it and not wanting to advertise it because you feel a little odd about asking for money for a hobby.
I hear that.
Without necessarily providing any obvious thing for it.
I feel that's kind of what
Patreon
is in general, though.
Yeah, but then the moment you decide to say like, oh, I'm doing this Patreon, but if you pledge this, we'll send you this each month or whatever, then it like ends up becoming something that's like too hard to manage, and it becomes so much of an obligation that like seems like it wasn't even worth doing in the first place. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, stuff's cool and worth looking at if people haven't already.
Mm-hmm. Most certainly. Well, so I don't know. Maybe we can think about calling the stream to an end. Like, I think we've largely touched on most of what we wanted to tonight. We've been streaming for quite a while now.
Yeah, no, I think we did what we wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess thanks everyone for coming out, particularly you, Eli, and commenting and listening to our banter.
Mm-hmm.
Expect to hear from us again pretty soon, probably at the very least next week at around a similar time. Yeah. Keep on enjoying the hobby. And, yeah.
We'll talk to you again soon.